I was 26 in 1990, a communications technician for NASA, working night shifts on an old monitoring array connected to our deep space network. The Cold War was winding down, and funding for space exploration was drying up. Most of my colleagues had already transferred or resigned. Those of us who remained were ghosts in the hallways, maintaining machines that hadn't been touched since the Apollo era. It was a quiet night, the kind of night where even the hum of the servers sounds like breathing. I remember pouring cold coffee into a cracked mug when one of the receivers, an ancient dish linked to lunar telemetry, flickered to life. No one had used it in decades, but there it was, active. At first, I thought it was interference, a solar flare maybe. Then the waveform stabilized, rhythmic, repeating, structured, intelligent. I stared at the monitor as the static formed a pulse, long, short, long, repeating again and again. It wasn't random. It was Morse code. The translation was simple. Just 4 chilling words, do not kibike. I froze. At first, I thought someone was playing a joke. But when I traced the signal's source, my blood turned to ice. It wasn't coming from any satellite. It wasn't coming from Earth. The origin point was the Sea of Tranquility, the exact landing site of Apollo 11. I reported it to my supervisor, an older man named Dr. Philip Garner, who'd been with NASA since the early Apollo days. When I told him what I found, he didn't look surprised. He didn't even look confused. He just stared at the data for a long time and whispered, "Not again." Within hours, 2 black sedans pulled up to the facility. The men who stepped out weren't NASA officials. Their badges didn't have names, only symbols. I was escorted to a conference room where they confiscated the recording and made me sign a non-disclosure agreement that felt more like a confession. Before they left, one of them leaned close and said, "If you value your life, forget you ever saw that signal." But I couldn't forget. A few nights later, I found a folder on my desk with no name, no label. Just a single black circle drawn on the front. Inside were photographs. Old ones. They were grainy, monochrome, and strange. One showed a crater with shadows that didn't line up with the light source. Another showed a boot print, not human. Too long, too thin. And one showed the reflection in an astronaut's visor. Not the reflection of another astronaut, but something tall, pale, and standing impossibly close. At the bottom of the folder, a single sheet of paper read, Apollo 17, unreported transmission. It took me weeks to gather the courage to look deeper. I scoured old archives, dusty storage rooms, anything that might explain the warning. Most of what I found was redacted beyond recognition. But one night in the basement of Building 2, I found a reel-to-reel tape buried in a box marked A17, BLK. It was the final unfiltered transmission feed from Apollo 17, the last manned mission to the moon in 1972. I threaded the tape into an old player and hit play. At first, it was routine chatter. The crew checking oxygen levels, confirming coordinates. Then the tone changed. Voices dropped to whispers. The background static shifted. It wasn't random anymore. It was rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Then came the words. "Mission Control, we're picking up movement below the surface. Say again. Something's under us. Seismic instruments are reading pressure changes. No geological activity detected. It's hollow." Then, screaming. A harsh static cut through, followed by heavy breathing and a voice trembling with fear. "We found an opening. A shaft beneath the crater. It's not natural. There are markings. Carvings. They look." The rest dissolved into chaos. I heard shouting, metal clanging, and a final desperate whisper before the tape ended. "It's awake." 2 days later, the same men from before appeared at my apartment. They didn't knock. They didn't need to. They took the tape, the photos, even my personal notes. But they made a mistake. They thought I only had one copy. They told me Apollo 17's crew reported nothing unusual, that Commander Eugene Cernan had died peacefully years later, that everything I'd heard was manufactured interference. But their eyes betrayed them. Fear isn't something you can hide. Before they left, one of them looked back at me and said, "You weren't supposed to hear that." It started with the static. At night, when the world was silent, I'd hear faint bursts of sound from the old radio I kept in my bedroom. Just whispers, buried in the white noise. Sometimes I thought I heard words. Other times, it sounded like breathing. Then came the dreams. I'd find myself standing on a barren gray surface beneath a black sky. My footprints vanished the moment I made them. The earth hung above me, blue and silent. And something enormous, moved beneath the dust. In one dream, I stood beside the flag left by Armstrong and Aldrin. Its shadow stretched too long, bending toward a fissure that pulsed faintly with light. When I looked down, the ground was covered in symbols. Truth carved deep into the rock, twisting shapes that moved when I blinked. And then I'd hear it. A voice, soft, distant, and hollow. "You shouldn't have come back." I'd wake up gasping, my ears ringing with the same frequency from the 1990 signal. Years passed. NASA shifted focus. The moon became history. Until 2025, when I saw it on the news. Private companies announce manned lunar return. My blood ran cold. They were going back. I wrote letters, emails, and warnings. I quoted the transmission. I begged them not to land near the Sea of Tranquility. Every message went unanswered. I was dismissed as a conspiracy theorist, a washed-up NASA dropout clinging to old myths. But I knew better. The last time we set foot there, we woke something up. And now, they were going to dig deeper. On the morning of the launch, I sat in my dark living room, the television flickering with live coverage. Crowds cheered as the rocket lifted into the sky. I could barely breathe. When the Artemis II mission finally landed, their broadcast went viral. High-definition images of the lunar surface, the American flag still standing, the Earth shining like a jewel in the distance. But then something strange happened. One of the crew, Commander Sophia Reyes, reported seismic anomalies near their landing zone. Minor tremors, rhythmic and repeating. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the tension. "Houston, we're getting some strange readings here. Almost like breathing beneath the crust." Lauder from Mission Control. "Copy that, Commander. Probably gas expansion or thermal shift." But her next words silenced the room. "We're seeing movement. A crack forming along the crater wall. It's glowing." The transmission cut out for 3 seconds. Then the feed came back, distorted, washed in static. The camera tilted wildly, and for a fraction of a second, something enormous moved in the background. It wasn't rock, it was rising. NASA went quiet after that. The feed went dark. Publicly, they blamed communication failure due to solar interference. But the real recordings, the unfiltered data streams, leaked from a European observatory 3 weeks later. I was one of the first to download them before they vanished. The last 15 seconds of the transmission were indescribable. You can hear the crew shouting, alarms blaring, something slamming against the hull of the lander. Then Sophia's voice, trembling, gasping. "It's opening, the ground is opening." A sound follows, not mechanical, not geological. A low, resonant moan that shakes the speakers, like the sound of an animal breathing through the vacuum of space. Then a whisper, buried deep in the static. "Woo, remember." And then silence. That night, astronomers around the world reported something new. Faint red fissures forming along the lunar surface, visible even through amateur telescopes. They said it was light reflecting off mineral deposits. But it wasn't. Those fissures began to move. Within days, they formed patterns, spirals, geometric lines, the same shapes carved beneath the Apollo landing sites in Schmidt's journals. The same ones from my dreams. The moon wasn't reflecting light anymore. It was producing it. Something beneath the surface was stirring. Then the transmissions began again. Every major radio telescope, every deep space network, even civilian ham radios, started picking up the same signal. A single, repeating frequency 1420 Mhz, the hydrogen line, the universal channel for intelligent communication. And beneath the static, a voice. Humans. Familiar. Commander Ray's. We didn't bury it deep enough. The transmission repeated every hour, every day, sometimes changing, sometimes whispering other words, too faint to understand. But one message became clear, burned into the signal like a brand. It's not dead. It's waiting. I couldn't sleep anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the surface of the moon. Rippling, expanding, breathing. I started hearing faint knocks in my walls, 3 at a time. My radio would turn on by itself at 3:33 a.m., playing nothing but static that seemed to move when I spoke. Then, one night, my old NASA pager, dead for decades, lit up on my desk. One message, Siom2, Hostien. I drove through the night. The Johnson Space Center was mostly empty when I arrived. I entered the same communications lab I'd worked in 35 years ago. Everything was covered in dust. Except one monitor. It was on. A black screen. A single white text line blinking. They're not on the moon anymore. My knees buckled. I heard a sound, faint, mechanical, rhythmic. The hum of static. The same frequency. The same warning. Then the message changed. It's beneath you. The ground trembled. Lights flickered. And for one terrible moment, I thought I heard breathing from events above me. Slow, heavy lunar. That was 6 months ago. Since then, the moon has continued to glow faintly red. Telescopes record shapes moving across its face. Tall, spindly silhouettes that vanish when observed directly. The tides have grown unpredictable. Animals behave strangely on full moons. And every night, at 0247 a.m., my radio turns on by itself. Last night I finally listened. The voice that spoke wasn't human anymore. It wasn't even trying to pretend. It was deeper, layered, as though 1,000 voices spoke through one mouth. It said, "We warned you not to come back. You brought us home instead." And then, over the next minute, a new frequency emerged. A harmonic resonance that caused my windows to vibrate and my vision to blur. Through the haze, I saw something impossible. The moon blinked. They're still denying everything. NASA, SpaceX, the international space agencies. They all call it optical illusion, data misinterpretation, mass hysteria. But I know the truth. We didn't just find something on the moon. We woke up. We fed it light, metal, electricity. And in doing so, we gave it form. Now I'm watching it. And sometimes when the night is perfectly clear, if you look closely at the dark side of the moon, you can see shapes moving. Not shadows, not craters, but eyes. And if you listen closely enough, past the static, past the wind, past the sound of your own heartbeat, you can still hear that voice whispering from the void. The same one that spoke to me in 1990. Do not come back. It's already here.